Well, we finished up Word and on to Excel. Now, Excel is a spreadsheet product. It does budgeting and numbers and scheduling, you name it, anything to do with numbers, it's Excel. So type EXCEL in the bottom left-hand corner if you're on a PC. And Excel is actually the most used product of any software or app in the entire world, even more than TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest. It's shocking, right? But every organization, whether they be nonprofit like a church or a company, they have to really deal with money. So let me first show you around. These little squares that I'm clicking on are called cells. And I've just opened the starter file in Excel in SAM. And so these are cells. And across the top are what we call our columns. And they go really far out. Hold down your right arrow key. It goes way past Z. In fact, I'll save you time. After it goes to AA, AB, AC, it actually has 16,000 columns. So you're not going to run out of room. And it's not just the columns across the top that are with letters. It's these numbers going down the side. These are called rows. And it goes way past 100. You'll be glad to know if you hold your down arrow down. In fact, I'll save you a little time. It goes past 1,000,000. And that is just sheet 1. If we click this plus sign, we can have actually 255 sheets. So you can make a lot more sheets here too. To get back very easily at any time, hold down the control key and home, and it'll take you to this top cell called A1, good steak sauce. But it's always going to be the letter and then the number. I'm going to make my spreadsheet a little bit bigger so you guys can see what's going on as we go. So what are we working on this week? Well, we're going to make a budget spreadsheet. Let me set this up. It's this little real estate local firm. Kind of think of some of those small local firms we have around Lynchburg and Bedford, all over the place. This one's called Fran Gold Real Estate Budget. What they're looking at is from January through December, how much they expect to make and bring in. For example, they've got expenses like rent and utilities and advertising, websites, printing, office supplies, gas, and miscellaneous, probably to drive the customers around. So we also have how much money do they have coming in. Real estate agents do pretty well. Typically, if they buy and sell someone's house both, they get like 6 to 7%. So if we're talking a $200,000 house, 6%, they would make, $12,000. So not bad income there. Hey, let me scroll down a little bit further. We're also going to make this pie chart. With this pie chart, it represents all the monthly expenses. And by the way, the big one is rent. That's the blue one down there. And it's pretty easy to make pie charts in Excel. So this is a very typical project. Excel will get much harder, but this week is not too bad. So let's open Excel. This should be your starter file that you've opened in SAM. And let's type in the words Fran Gold Real Estate Budget. And you'll notice it doesn't really fit all in A1. It just kind of flows out of it, but that's okay. And press enter when you're done. And we're going to first type in monthly estimate with an S and then the income. Now, before we go any further, I need to teach you something called Autofill. So I'm going to head over to sheet 2, but you can delete this later. This is just for teaching. So I want to show you autofill, and the word I'm saying is this word, autofill. This will really save you a lot of time when you do your assignment, and I can always tell when a student understands this. They finish this week's assignment in an hour or two, but if they don't understand, 3 or 4 hours. So this will be a time saver. Let me show you how it works. If I were typing in like 1, 2, and I wanted to keep counting, you can put in the first 2 numbers, highlight them, and look at the mouse right now. I'm going to call this the big fat white cross. When I highlight both of them, it turns 1 into the anchor cell. It's got a white background and then a gray background for the second one. Now let me show you where the autofill handle. Now right now, my mouse looks like a big fat white cross, but when I get over here to the bottom corner of the number 2, do you notice it turned into this skinny plus sign? When I drag it down now, it just autofills all those numbers. And it does more than that. Let me head over to C1 if you want to try this. I want you to type in a 5 and a 10. The big fat white cross, highlight the 5 and the 10. Come on down to the bottom. And by the way, this is called the fill handle. When I click on the fill handle with my skinny plus sign and now drag, look at this, it knows the 5s. And I can use it for a lot of things. I could use it for like the months of the year. Let's say I type Jan for January, hit enter. I don't even need the second month. I can click back on Jan, get the fill handle with the skinny plus sign, drag it down, and wow, it knows the months of the year. And if I would have wrote January, it would have done January. Hey, let me try Monday. So I could even use Mon, Tues, Wed, Thurs, Fry for abbreviations. But otherwise, I can get my skinny plus sign and drag it on down. And you can even use it, I'll put in my name, Corinne. I'll get this skinny little plus sign, drag it down. It just repeats it. But if you have to type in a million yeses on a form, you definitely want to use this. And if one person says no, just change that one, right? So autofill is going to be awesome. To delete this sheet, I'm going to right click and hit delete. And delete. Back to my sheet. Well, the reason I just was showing that to you is I now want to put the months of the income. So I'm going to type in January, make sure you spell it right, into cell B3, press enter, and then click back on January. And I'm going to use autofill to go to the right instead of down like I was just showing you. And notice this little tooltip pops up telling me what month I'm on. Pretty cool. So let me keep on going. Oh, I don't want to go past December. So M as in Mary will be the last one. So now you can type all that in, but autofill is going to be the bomb. So let's type in cell A4, commission, and then interest, and then total. Skip a line, row 7. We're going to pick up back with expenses, and I want to do the same thing again. I want to type January here, and I don't want to have to type everything, so hit enter. Get your fill handle and grab it all the way out through December. Guys, I'll pick back up after you type everything in from figure 1-25, and then if you would, we're also going to type the numbers in, but wait until I show you a trick. Deal? Before we can continue, double check something for me. Make sure you put total in N3, total in N8, and total and net, all these places. Now, go ahead and copy in from the table, that's table 1-1, this commission. Now, these numbers are different each month based on probably last year's. So they're all typed in, but I want to show you how to type in the ones that we could use autofill. So for example, in B5, I'm going to type in the 100, but every month is 100. So you could type them all in yourself, but it would not be wrong to just type it in and copy it with autofill straight across, just like we did with January, February. So some of the months that we can do that, for example, the rent is $1,500 every single month. The utilities are always $325. Utilities are like gas, power, water, those type of things. And of course, this company needs to advertise, so $400. They might be advertising online or wherever. But type those 3 in because they're consistent all the way. Here's a quick trick. Highlight all 3 and now just drag over to December. And especially if you're copying this for 20 years, you're really going to like autofill. Otherwise, it's a lot of work. Now, our website, we're only going to pay one time a year. Go ahead for July. We're paying a webmaster $500. It's pretty typical for a small website. But in these other numbers, we're just going to put a 0. And a quick way to do that is put from 0 and then use autofill all the way through June. Then type August 0 and then all the way through. Hey, our printing, I'm sure they do a lot of those, flyers and things that you get like at La Coretta that show homes, right? Love La Coretta, by the way. So that, by the way, is 200 every month. So copy printing straight across. And go ahead and fill in the rest and we'll come back. Everything, by the way, is in table 1-1. Now it turns out that Excel isn't just cute little squares called cells to store information. It's very powerful. It can do calculations. So let's do our first formula of many that you're going to do over the next month. I want you to click in cell B6, and you'll know it's the active cell. It says B6 where my mouse is jumping up and down. Again, let me make my screen a little bit larger so your eyes won't bug you by the end of this. Now, I'm going to show you several ways to do a formula because it's good to know. So the first one, I'm going to type in an equal sign into cell B6. The equal sign is probably the most important thing we'll learn today. It means that we're starting a formula, and the computer automatically thinks, I've got to do some math. Now, I want to reference these two cells, what's in B4 and what's in B5. Never type these exact literals in. Literals mean an actual number. Why? Because in real life, these numbers could change, and I want them to still be able to add the two up. Total means I'm going to add my commission from January of $12,000, add it to the interest that I earned in January. So you're already probably doing the math in your head, 12,100. But I might come in this spreadsheet with actual values later. Maybe my commission was 12,822, and I don't want to have to redo all the formulas. So the best way to do this is refer to B4 and B5. Those are called cell references. And when you type them in, it doesn't matter if they're uppercase or lowercase. So when I type a B4, notice what happens here. It turns this cell blue, and also blue here. I'll put a plus sign, and now type in B5. Notice it turned B5 red. How cool is that? And by the way, it can do green, blue, purple. It keeps going. When I hit enter here, let me click back on that cell. It did the math or the calculation. But let me show you something super important. Up here where I'm highlighting, this is called the formula bar. And if I ever click on a formula bar up here, it will show me what's in that cell. You can always look up here and you can see the formula. If you click up there, it actually turns colors. I like the colors because that way you know you didn't make a typo with some weird cell over here. Now that's one way to do a formula. And you could add, subtract, multiply, divide. You get the idea. Let me show you another way. I also need to do the sum in C6 of C4. Ooh, don't say that loud in an airport. And C5. Now I could type it like I did last time, but I want to show you a different way that you might prefer. I'm going to type an equal sign, and this time, sometimes I fat finger it. I do typos all the time. So let me show you instead. I'm going to click C4, and notice it types C4 for me. It turns blue. It's even up here. Let me type a plus sign, and now click on the next cell, which is going to be, whoops, wrong one. Let me go back. If I do the wrong one, it won't be happy. So I'll put the plus sign in, and now I can click on C5, and it actually puts that cell in there for me, and I hit enter. So now it can actually add those two together. Now that's great, but as you can see, I don't want to type in this many formulas. Remember what we learned in Autofill? Well, it also works with formulas. This is cool. I'm going to go back and click on cell C6. The formula for that is C4, C5. If I copy it using Autofill, it'll change that in what we call relative reference of where it is. What does that mean? Instead of adding the C's up, next cell it'll add the D's up, D4 and D5. And then in column E, the E's up, E4 and E5. So how do we copy it? Get your skinny little plus sign on that fill handle in the bottom right-hand corner and just drag over to column M. Now, if I click on cell D6, like I said, relative reference, it relative to where you are, it adds up the D's, there's the E's, the F's. I think you get the idea. Hey, let's also come up with another total. Everyone come down and click on cell B17. I want to add up all my expenses from January. Now, I've shown you we can do several different ways. Let me show you another way. On cell B17, we're going to use something called auto sum. And what auto sum is this tool up here. Look where my mouse is jumping up and down in the top ribbon. This auto sum is actually the Greek letter sigma. So let me open OneNote and show you that all drawn out nicely. So I could have this Greek letter sigma, and sigma just means to add them up. This is a Greek letter sigma. You see it a lot in fraternities and sororities at universities because it means bring together or add together. That makes sense. So let me go back and now this time use auto sum or the sigma. So I want to add up all of these expenses for January. So I'm going to come up to my ribbon, find auto sum. The first time I click it, it just gives me this formula right here. Let me kind of show that to you really big so you can see it. When I clicked on auto sum one time in the ribbon, it actually reads equals sum of B9 colon B16. Well, we don't really read colon. Colon means through. So it means the sum of cells B9 through B16. To make auto sum work, the first time it gives you the formula, but the second time I click on it, let me go ahead and click it the second time, it now adds them up. So that first time is like double checking to make sure that formula is correct. So if I were you, I would use auto sum a lot, but again, it only works with addition. Let me now get my autofill plus sign and drag it all the way over to get all the formulas of all my expenses. Now in the big picture here, let's see what's going on. My total that I made as income for January was $12,100, but I have to spend $2,975 in expenses. So what's left? In fact, we call what's left net, kind of like in your little net that you're bringing home. So to compute net, we can't use auto sum. Here's why. We're going to type in cell B19 an equal sign, and you have to know whether to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. This is where your critical thinking comes into play. On the test, it's not going to say, type an equal sign, click here, then click minus, then click here. So you need to understand what is needed here, because in real life, you would have to do that as well. So now here's what we're deciding. If I brought in $12,100, but I spent expenses, a total of $2,975, how do I compute what's left? Well, I'm hoping you're thinking subtract, because that's what what's left meant. This is kind of like a big word problem. So you would need to know to click on B6 and subtract the total. Make sure you do it in that order. You wouldn't want to take your expenses and subtract how much you made. That doesn't make any sense. So now hit enter. So that month, wow, we had $9,125 in profit. Not bad. And when I get my skinny plus sign, yep, we can use autofill here too. We can see the different amounts that I made each month. Wow, some months were better than others. Usually real estate is pretty good in the summer, and that's really true in this spreadsheet. Now that we have that in, let's come over here to totals in N4. What I want to do next is I want to add straight across all of my commissions. So I want to add these 12 different commissions for January, February, March, all the way through December. Well, I could do a really long formula, and by the way, yes, that would work and be counted correct, equals, and add up everything starting in B4 plus C4 plus D4, but that's a really long formula. So like I taught you, we're going to use auto sum, but I want to show you another way to use auto sum. What I'm going to do is highlight these three cells, N4, N5, and N6, with a big fat white cross. If you select multiple cells at once and then click Autofill, it'll add all 3 of these rows, row 4, 5, and 6, all up, all 12 numbers on each row, and get the total. And the neat thing about it is if you select multiples like we are, you only have to hit auto sum one time. It's not going to verify. So now when I click it, boom, it added up. Let's just go to that first one and see. It is the sum of B4, remember colon, means through M4. Double check that that makes sense. And that brings me to a big point here. Make sure as you do any of your spreadsheet homework over the next month that the number that you come up with makes sense. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago in our textbook, we had this, how fast are you driving? You had to do, a speed calculation. The answer was like 62 miles per hour. Well, one of the students got the final result as negative 3,586 or some number like that, a negative. Well, when I asked him, I said, well, how is that possible? He said, well, a negative? I guess I was backing up really fast. I'm like, what? Look at the numbers. If they don't make sense, like a negative with speed, which would make no sense, probably something went wrong. And this is doing the math for you, but make sure that your calculations and formulas are right to get that math. Let's do this. We're going to highlight from N9 through N17 and add everything straight across. So quick way to do that is click the auto sum sigma right up here. Voila. And let's do one more. I want to add all of these numbers straight across, but since I just have one cell selected, think in your head, how many times do I need to hit auto sum? I'm hoping you're thinking 2. So I hit auto sum the first time, look it straight across, and it's saying sum of B19 through M19. Yep, that's right. So I hit the auto sum the second time. Double check your number. You should have a preliminary number that the total that they make in 1 year is 154,600. If you don't have that number, then most likely what went wrong is that you typed in something incorrectly. Go back and check. So if you worked at Fran Gold Real Estate Budget, would you rather stare at this spreadsheet all day or one that's more formatted and easier to read like this? Well, of course, this. So let's clean up our spreadsheet and show you a couple things along the way. So first, there's some really cool tools in Excel that weren't in Word. Let me show you the first. Hit Control and Home at the same time to head to cell A1. And I want to format this as a title, but not go through all the font business. So there's something really neat in this. It's called under the Home tab in the Styles group. Go ahead and click on Cell Styles. This is kind of like one-stop shopping. I mean, look what happens to this as I just scroll around and make things look totally different here. So I'm going to make this one A1 title. That makes it blue and different font and all kinds of things going on and size. And I want to do a little bit more than that. Let's go ahead after we title that cell. Let's click on cell A2 where it says monthly estimates. I'll just show you, I do the old fashioned here. So I'll go down to changing the font. I'm going to pick Arial Narrow as my first font there. And I need a little bit more. Let's go ahead and make that bold. We'll go ahead and, well, let's click on cell A1 and make it bold, sorry. So make sure you got that right. And let's also click A2 and also make it bold. Okay, that looks great. And let's see, while we're on cell A2, let's also make it size 16. So it's Arial Narrow, size 16 and bold. And let's go ahead and add a little bit color here. Let's go back to cell A1 and click on the font color. We learned this in Word. We're going to pick this very, very top green, and to be exact, green accent 6. And let's go ahead to cell A2 and do it the same color. So A2, green, and if once you click it once, you can just click right on that green to select it very quickly. Now, here's something that a lot of students have a little challenge with. We want that title, Fran Gold Real Estate Budget, to center across columns A through N. but you can't just press the center button. If you hit center, this would just do nothing really because it's bigger than one cell and you can't center in one cell when it's larger. So let me show you something else. We're going to click on cell A1 and then with a big fat white cross, highlight till you get to N1. There's a very important cell that's used a lot in Excel. It's called Merge and Center. So let me show you where that is. What we're going to do is under the Home tab, I want you to go to the alignment group. It may say Merge and Center on your computer. I have a very small laptop, Surface Pro 7, so my button is right here. I'm going to go ahead and click Merge and Center. Once again, Home tab alignment. And as soon as I click Merge and Center, look what happens to that title. This is now really literally one single cell from A1 to N1. And you can't do Merge and Center with multiple rows at a time. So let's do it for the next. Let's highlight from A2 to N2 and click on Merge and Center as well. Next, let's highlight what's in from A3 to N3. And be careful not to click this like row number and go way past this. Don't format letters O, N, O, P, Q, the rest of the alphabet there. So just these cells. What we're going to do is go to Cell Styles on this one. And on this one, we're going to pick Heading 1. And I know you're probably seeing that the letters are getting cut off here. We'll worry about the columns in just a bit. And let's go ahead with the Heading 1 cell picked. I want you also to click the Center button. And what this is going to do when I click Center is center each of these words within their cell. And it's kind of easy to see over here on Total that it is now centered. I also want to do from Expenses to Total on row 8, so A8 to N8. Also, let's go to Cell Styles, make it Heading Size 1. And now I want to show you how to do several things to a larger range. Here's what I want to do. I want to highlight from A6 to N6. Now, before you click the nether, I want to do this row 19 as well. But my trouble becomes in 17, I can't highlight different rows that aren't connecting unless I hold down the Control key. So after I highlight row 6, hold down the Control key and highlight row 17, the values, while you're still holding down Control, and then let go of the mouse and the Control key at the same time. Now here's what this allows me to do. Now when I go to Cell Styles, and I'm going to pick something called the Total, it does it to both rows, so I don't have to do it all this separately. And especially if you have a lot of rows that you're selecting, it's the way to go. Also, highlight from A19 to N19. Let's go to Cell Styles. What we're going to do on that one is pick Accent 6, make it a nice strong green. Hey, then I want you to highlight from A4 to N4. Also, highlight from, we'll hold down Control, A9 to N9. Also, highlight down row 11, hold on, A11 to N11, very good. Hold down A13 to N13, kind of notice what I'm doing here, every other. Hold down row 15 as well. And what we're going to do is now go to Cell Styles to kind of make this do an every other type thing. We're going to go to 20% Accent 6, kind of looks cool. And then I want you to format A5 to N5. Hold down the Control key. Do rows 10, rows 12, 14, and 16. Now we're doing the opposite ones that we didn't do before. Let's go ahead and go to Cell Styles. And we're going to go with the 40% Accent 6. And you can just click off that to remove it. So it's hard to see, but a little bit of light green, dark green action going on there. Hey, then let's start formatting the numbers in the worksheet because there's a lot of zeros here and it's just a little overwhelming. So let's highlight from B4 to N4. These are the numbers in row 4. And we're going to click in the Home tab in the number grouping on this little dollar sign right here. And what this does is put the dollar in front of everything there. Do you notice what it does? Not only does it put the dollar sign, but it puts a decimal with 2 places past the 0. Now, we're not going to put that number sign everywhere, but we will put it several places. I now want you to highlight from B5 to N5, and instead of that being a dollar sign 2, because it would just get a little kind of crazy, we're going to go to the third number format on the bottom. This looks like a big comma on the Home tab number group. Click this comma style, and what that does is it puts the decimal place 2 places past the 0, but it doesn't do the dollar sign because it looks a little overwhelming. So now we want to apply, if you would, let's highlight from B6 to N6. On B6 through N6, let's go ahead and click the accounting again, which is that number, a dollar sign. Do want to show you underneath, if you were working with a different country, there's the pound, the euro, the yen. Of course, Switzerland has their own. So based on whatever type of number, and by the way, they have almost every, I'm sure they have every number type of money for different countries. Now we're going to highlight several different ranges. I want you to highlight from B9 to N9. Make sure you get all of these. Hold down the control key to include row 17 as well. So I'm going to highlight from B to N in 17 and then also in 19. Basically what I'm doing is the top and bottom of each group, and I'm going to apply the accounting with the accounting number format, which is this dollar sign, but everything in between. So from B10 all the way to N16, let's go ahead and put the comma style. Now notice what the comma style did to the zeros. Look in row 12 at all those little scratch. What that means is 0, but instead of having so many zeros on the screen, this looks a little more professional. Now finally, let's adjust that column width to make sure that everything looks a little bit nicer. Now there are several ways to do the columns, but the one I want to do is something that does something called auto fit. And what auto fit is, let's lay your mouse, look where my mouse is, between column A and B. Notice that commission is getting cut off, office, sup, whatever, miscellaneous is getting cut off. So by laying your mouse between column A and B, you get this 2-sided arrow. Now by double clicking really quick, think of Little Caesars, pizza, pizza. Double click really quick right there. What this does is called autofit. It finds the longest word, which I suspect was office supplies, and perfectly fits that longest item in the column to accommodate making everything visible. We're also now going to do B through N. So highlight B through N at the top, all the way over. Let me make my spreadsheet a little bit smaller to be able to do this easier. So highlight the column letters from B to N. And what we're going to do there is just double click between any two, it doesn't matter, and that will automatically auto fit every word so that nothing gets cut off. So now I can read September, October, December. I want to show you how to use the name box in a cell. This is the name box over here. Click where it says B3, and let's just type in A3 and hit enter. Whatever you type in the cell, it goes to that cell. I know you may not think that's a big deal, but when you're in a spreadsheet with literally billions of values, being able to quickly go there without scrolling around seems to be a big deal. Hey, now for something fun. Let's add a pie chart. And I don't know about you, but when I learned to make a pie chart in elementary school, it was a pain. You had to draw it with a protractor. It was a lot of work. A lot easier in Excel. So what I'd like you to do is highlight the expenses. So we're highlighting from A9 to A16. let go of your mouse and check something for me. Make sure you did not highlight the word total. You never want to highlight the total because that makes it look like total is the name of an expense. Now we don't want to graph every number on the spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do after I highlight A9 to A16 is hold down the control key and highlight their amounts that they did for the entire year. And again, make sure you're highlighting N9 through N16 and not including this total. If you include that total, then you'll have this giant half of the pie for an element that's not an expense. It's just for the calculation. So after you have these two highlighted, we're going to go to the pie chart. And how you do this is to click the Insert tab. There's all kinds of different charts, but the one right here is the pie chart. When I drop it down, there's several kinds of pie. There's 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and donut. And we're going to use today just this flat pie. But at first, when I click right here, it lays it on top of my chart, which I really don't want it to do. So what we're going to first do here before we move it around is highlight this chart title. So I'm going to change the chart title to monthly expenses with a capital M and a capital E. And this area down at the bottom that tells you what color each item does is actually called the legend. And what I want to do here is I want you to click on this white background. When you click on this white background, do you see these three tools, a plus sign, a paintbrush for chart styles, and a filter? I want you to go to this chart styles, and there's these different styles that we can apply. For example, that one does that. Scroll down until you get to style 6. It looks like this one. And notice it kind of changes the colors a little bit, puts a legend on the right side. But I don't want these to lay right on top of this. So I want to move this chart to a new sheet. Right now we have just sheet 1 down here. I don't want this to lay right on top of this. So it's pretty easy to do. Come up to the ribbon. Right now we're under the Chart Design tab. Let's click Move Chart. And when I click Move Chart right here, we get this tool to pop up. I want it to be a new sheet. And what I want to do is name that sheet right now, right here. Let's go ahead and call it Monthly Expense Chart. By the way, you could have named it later, but I'm going to go ahead and name it right now. What happens is it takes that chart. Look what happened. Here's still sheet 1, but notice we have this monthly expenses chart on its own little tab right there. And we can change the names of these afterwards. In fact, double click on sheet 1 like pizza pizza. And let's type for the sheet 1, we're going to rename it to Monthly Finances. We can even change the color. You know how after a while you'll just go to the red tab or the orange tab. You won't have to read it. So to change the color, let's click off of it, double click on Monthly Finances, and now right click your mouse right here, and you'll get a little tool called Tab Color. And I'm just going to pick this very top green for Monthly Finances, do Accent 6 green. And then after we do this, now when we click back and forth, we can see this pretty well. So we can see white and green looking good. Well, guys, if we were to print this right now, let's talk about that. If I were to ever go to a printer, and some companies still do print, right now, look at the piece of paper. This is called Portrait. It kind of looks like a school picture portrait. Let's face it, it's a little bit better when you go to the File tab and click Print to have it a little wider. So for example, if I wanted to print this, let's say to a PDF. PDF is a file where people can't modify or make changes. So I might want to print it to PDF, but I'm also going to come down here and change it, let's say, to landscape orientation. And notice it only makes it to September. I actually have to go over to page 2. Well, let's say I really just wanted one page here. So right at the bottom, do you see where it says no scaling? I can say fit sheet on one page. As long as it's not going to be super crazy tiny, that seems to work. Now, I also want to show you how you can see some auto calculations. Let's hit the left arrow to get it back out. I want you to imagine that there you can see any kind of values. Let's do this. I want you, oh, we haven't highlighted net. Let's go highlight net. The one thing we haven't done on net is I want to make sure my cell styles are set to accent 6. I think I did that earlier. But what I want to do here is at any point in time, if you just highlight it, let's say these 6 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice right down here, do you see where it says this is the average of just this 6 values? And there's 6 of them in the count and sum. Well, where that is coming from is if you right-click that bottom line that says ready at the bottom, we can turn on different things. For example, we can now check maximum. And now when I look down here with these 6 numbers, I now have the maximum, or the biggest number in this range of 6 is, let's say, 15,825. So by right-clicking, anything that is a check by it will show up. If it's unchecked, it doesn't. So if you wanted minimum, numeric count, turn off count, whatever you wanted to do there. Okay, so now that we've gone through this chapter and this module, they go over the tell me box again, but that's the same as regular. So what I'd like you to do now is go and find Sam and go to File, Save As, and save it by the correct name in which to submit to Sam. Guys, keep up the good work. Excel's about to get harder, so make sure you read through this section, and I'll meet you back next week. Keep up the good work, guys. Super proud.